My parents refused to attend my wedding because my fiancé was a single dad. My father, Gerald, warned me he would ruin your life. I am Dana, a 24-year-old digital archivist from Portland, and I was staring at the two empty chairs in the front row when the music started. My mother, Sandra, wasn't there either. I kept turning my silver thumb ring and my hands had gone completely cold with nervous dread. Then his 6-year-old son, Toby, walked down the aisle holding a large cardboard sign. The room froze. People started crying around me. Toby looked up with those big, steady eyes and lifted the sign higher. It read, "Today I don't lose my dad, I get my Dana." I couldn't stop crying. The two empty chairs stayed empty. Standing there, I honestly believed Mom and Dad had chosen pride over me. I had no idea why 48 hours later millions of strangers would know Toby's name and remember his sweet face. They thought their absence would fill the chapel with a heavy public shame, but they completely forgot that the quietest hearts often capture the loudest truths. Dad had always used money and guilt to make people agree with him. My fiancé, Leo, a hardworking landscape architect, was a widower who spent every evening reading bedtime stories to Toby before bed. At our rehearsal dinner, Dad handed me a thick manila envelope and smiled. "I'm just protecting our family's future, sweetheart. Some things become heavier than they look." Mom adjusted her pearl necklace. "Your father only wants what's best for you." Leo squeezed my hand under the table. "We don't need the trust fund," he said quietly. Dad looked at Toby for a second and then back at me. "One day you'll understand why I tried to stop this. I just hope it isn't too late." I didn't answer. Dad always believed love should be practical. I believed love should be generous. We had been having the same argument for years without ever changing each other's minds. We just didn't know a 6-year-old boy would end it so completely, rewriting their rigid definitions of family value with a single piece of cardboard. The morning of the ceremony smelled like fresh rain and old wood. I sat beside Toby in the dressing room while he nervously kicked his feet against the chair and stared at the floor. "Dana, will your dad hate me forever?" he asked softly. My chest tightened before I could answer. I straightened his tiny suit collar and smiled. "Toby, look at me. Real family doesn't measure love by blood." He handed me the cardboard sign he had spent 3 nights painting in secret with colorful markers. "I want everyone to see it," he whispered. I brushed a piece of hair away from his forehead. "They will, Toby," and honestly, I wasn't thinking about Mom or Dad anymore. I just wanted the little boy sitting beside me to feel safe walking down that aisle. I thought the hardest part of the day would be seeing 2 empty chairs. I had no idea the world was about to see something none of us expected, or that my automated digital stream was about to send his small voice directly into millions of homes. The wedding coordinator opened the chapel doors and the soft music filled the room. Leo stood at the altar, already wiping tears from his eyes as Toby stepped onto the carpet. The 6-year-old walked slowly, holding the cardboard sign tightly against his little suit with both hands. I saw my cousin, Renee, cover her mouth. A woman in the 3rd row quietly reached for a tissue. Even the photographer lowered her camera for a second, blinking away tears herself. Toby stopped halfway down the aisle and raised the sign with both hands. "Today I don't lose my dad. I get my Dana." Leo closed his eyes and laughed through his tears. I couldn't stop crying. I walked toward them without looking anywhere else. The 2 empty chairs in the front row stayed empty, and I told myself I would grieve them tomorrow. Today, I wasn't losing anything. I was gaining a husband and a son. I had no idea someone outside our little chapel was about to take that exact moment and make our quiet survival impossible to ignore around the world. We finished the vows while I tried not to think about the 2 empty chairs in the front row. Right after the kiss, Renee uploaded the unedited live stream of Toby's walk to her social media page. Nobody thought much about it at the time. We were too busy hugging relatives and taking pictures together. As Leo and I walked toward the parking lot, my phone started buzzing in my purse. Messages kept appearing faster than I could read them, and calls began coming from friends. 2 days later, the video had reached 11 million views globally. People from all over the country were sharing a 6-year-old boy holding a cardboard sign. Leo squeezed my hand. "I guess Toby made an impression," he said quietly. I smiled, but something felt strange in my chest. None of us understood what that little sign would mean to strangers. And none of us understood what it would mean to Mom and Dad. If you need to hear how a child's pure message forced a proud patriarch to finally look into his own cold mirror, stay with me. The video spread far beyond our friends and relatives. Teachers shared it, church groups shared it, parents posted it with stories about second chances and blended families. People didn't know our names, but they understood the look on Toby's face when he held that sign. By the second evening, local reporters had asked permission to feature the clip. That's when Mom called. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Your father hasn't slept," she whispered. "People keep sending him the video." I sat quietly at my kitchen table while rain tapped against the window and cooled the evening air. "Mom, nobody forced him to miss the wedding," I said softly. She didn't argue, she just cried into the line. Before hanging up, she said something she had never said before. "I don't know how we got this so wrong." My hands went entirely cold. For the first time in my life, I heard actual doubt in her voice. I wasn't prepared for that or for the deep sadness behind her tears. Dad called me close to midnight on the third day. His voice sounded angry, but underneath the anger I heard something unfamiliar. "Fear. People think we're monsters, Dana," he said. I put my teacup down and closed my eyes for a long moment. "People saw what happened, Dad." He stayed quiet, his heavy breathing filling the silence. Mom took the phone from him. "Your father keeps replaying the video," she whispered softly. "He watches Toby holding that sign over and over again." I didn't know what to say. Mom started crying again. "We thought we were protecting you," she said. "We thought we were being good parents." I felt my chest tighten. "Good parents don't punish children for losing their mother," I answered quietly. Nobody spoke for several seconds. The silence on the line was deafening. Then Mom whispered, "I know." She handed the phone back. Dad didn't say another word before hanging up. But for the first time, they sounded less concerned about being right and more concerned about what they had actually done to us. 4 weeks later, Dad called me from his private number. His voice sounded smaller somehow, stripped of its usual pride. "Dana, I don't know how to fix this," he said quietly. I closed my laptop and sat down in the absolute silence of my apartment. There was a long pause before he spoke again. "I watched that video 100 times. Every time I stopped when Toby held up that sign." His voice cracked completely. "I kept seeing a little boy, not a burden, not a mistake, just a little boy who wanted a mother." I covered my mouth with my hand and tried not to cry. He took another shaky breath. "I'm sorry, Dana. I'm sorry for all of it. It wasn't a perfect apology, it wasn't dramatic, but it was real, and real mattered more. I had spent 24 years waiting for my father to choose pride less and love more." Sitting there in the quiet, I realized that sometimes people change because the truth becomes too obvious to ignore, even when it hurts. 2 months later, Mom and Dad came to our house for the first time. Dad brought Toby a toy train and spent 20 minutes sitting on the floor helping him connect the tracks with careful hands. Nobody talked about the wedding. Nobody talked about the video. Mom quietly helped me set the table while Leo grilled hamburgers outside on the patio. Everything felt awkward, and honestly, awkward was better than angry. After dinner, Toby wrapped his arms around Mom and said, "Good night, Grandma." She started crying immediately. Dad looked down at his plate and wiped his eyes with his napkin. Healing wasn't dramatic, it was uncomfortable and slow. But sitting there, watching Toby laugh with the people who once rejected him, I realized something important. I had spent 24 years trying to earn my parents' approval. I wasn't waiting anymore. I already had my family right here at this wooden table. Everything after that was simply grace and gratitude. Some deep wounds heal quietly when people finally choose love over their own stubborn pride. Last weekend, we celebrated Toby's 7th birthday in our backyard. He blew out his candles while Leo laughed and pretended to steal the frosting roses. Mom brought potato salad. Dad spent half an hour teaching Toby how to throw a baseball. Life wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. Some families teach you what love looks like. Others teach you what love isn't. Both lessons matter. Watching Toby run across the grass, I realized how much had changed. The same little boy who once worried my father would hate him now laughed without fear. If this story stayed with you, if you saw something true in it, please like this video, subscribe so you never miss one, and leave a comment telling me. Did I make the right choice, yes or no? My parents boycotted my wedding because they thought my husband came with a burden. A 6-year-old boy walked down the aisle holding a cardboard sign. 48 hours later, 11 million people saw what my parents finally learned. Toby never lost his dad, and somewhere along the way I stopped feeling like I had lost mine. That's the story.